Welcome to this week's Session Spotlight. I'm Paige Taylor. Republican lawmakers decided to not take action on the proposed social studies standards from the Oklahoma State Department of Education. These standards will be taught to kindergarten through 12th grade students in Oklahoma public schools. The legislature would have had to reject the standards by May 1st if they were going to. Republicans decided not to, so these standards will be going into effect beginning next school year for the next 6 years. On April 24th, State Senator Adam Pugh filed a joint resolution to reject the standards, something Democrats did at the end of March. But in the end, none of the 3 resolutions that were filed were heard on the floor. A joint resolution would have had to have made it through both chambers in order to reject the standards, and a resolution would have needed to have been brought to the floor at the beginning of last week. It became clear to Democrats on Tuesday that the joint resolution was not going to be heard. Senate Minority Leader Julia Kerr expressed her frustrations to reporters that afternoon.
Senate had an opportunity today to check the power of Ryan Walters, our superintendent, and they chose not to. Our Republican colleagues are not stepping up to put kids first. They did not put the resolution on the agenda. And when we asked to be recognized to hear the resolution or reject the social studies standards and make sure that our kids are being taught facts and appropriately, they would not hear it and they would not recognize us. So that's where we are right now. And again, we're seeing Republicans unwilling to stand up to Superintendent Walters, even when the evidence is there, even when people across the state are asking us to take another look and make sure these are correct for what we teach kids across the state. We're talking about what we teach them about government, what we teach them about history. And I take that seriously. And it matters to us what our kids are learning. I have an 8th grader, I'm an 11th grader. That's gonna matter to their education. Next year, these standards will be used. And so if we're not concerned about that, we need to reconsider, because what is taught in our classrooms is incredibly important, and we're taking every strategy we can to push back against this.
We got more clarity from Senate Pro Tem Lonnie Paxton on Thursday during his weekly media availability with reporters.
Last week during the governor's press conference, the governor made a comment that the legislature should send those standards back. And so, of course, we listened to that. When the governor said that, I had several members of the Senate who came to me who were in favor of sending those standards back, said, hey, the governor is now saying we need to do that. A lot of constituents had contacted a lot of our senators and said the exact same thing. And so that's when Senator Pugh and I were having discussions shortly after press availability last week, and started talking about the fact that, and looked at the legislative calendar. So these things would have been done by a certain time. In order to follow the Constitution, we had to have the first legislative day, the first reading of that bill, of that resolution, would have had to have been last Thursday. So Senator Pugh and I worked together because the governor made that comment, and because of the comments that we were getting from not only constituents but fellow senators that they wanted to discuss this more. So we had to follow a resolution on Thursday, which we did, and then the point of that was to have a discussion with our caucus on Monday. So there was discussions over the weekend, people, phone calls and discussions about it with stuff. I talked to the governor 3 different times over the weekend just to verify that he was still calling for that, and he was all the way up until Sunday. And then Sunday evening when I talked to the governor, he said, well, you all can kind of do with it what you want to, and kind of had I won't say pulled back support for it, but wasn't going to help us with accomplishing that. And I don't know his reason. You have to ask him why he kind of decided not to help us push that forward. That's his call. But we went ahead as a caucus and did what we do on Mondays, and we spent the entire hour and a half having those discussions, including bringing in Superintendent Walters to discuss the issues with us as well. And so many of us had already talked to state school board members, and so we had a very robust discussion. And after that was all over, we just realized there was not enough support within our caucus to move that forward. So we talked about it, we worked on it, and we decided not to come forward with it.
The cost to implement the standards was outlined in Senator Pugh's resolution to cost $33 million. Republican leadership says money is appropriated for textbooks every year. Some are concerned far-right think tanks will be the only ones that will be able or want to supply the textbooks for these new standards.
In terms of who's going to supply those textbooks, from my understanding, PragerU and Heritage Foundation are the only two entities or potential vendors, I guess you could say, that would be able to match curriculum to fit these standards.
That issue about textbooks has come up a lot. We have two members of our caucus who were involved with that, working for the State Department of Education and in the community, Senator Boren and Senator Mann. And I know they're looking at that process, and we will be vigilant going forward to try to make sure that there's not conflicts of interest around that request for proposals. We're very concerned that some of the people on the executive committee that Superintendent Ryan Walters named are textbook related. And so we're going to make sure that that is analyzed with any of these calls for proposals, requests for, however it works at OMES. So we have great concerns about it. We have to give districts choices. They are going to be looking to create materials. If they're not able to find materials, that's a whole lot of time for teachers. That's a whole lot of wasted time for schools. And so I think, again, we're seeing politicized efforts by Superintendent Walters that are going to undermine education.
I'm always concerned about how the money's being spent. We appropriate money to the State Department of Education. We don't get specifically in how it's all spent, other than we categorize it. So yes, I'm concerned about that. I've heard the same thing about vendors. I would assume if there's $33 million to spend, somebody will jump in there and figure out how to do it.
Lawmakers have been looking into the current financial situation of the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services as the agency is facing a budget shortfall for fiscal year 25. But Thursday afternoon, lawmakers were hit with another development in the agency's financial struggles. They were now being told the agency was not going to be able to make payroll. Here's the letter Fox 25 obtained that House Speaker Kyle Hilbert sent to House members late Thursday evening. It reads in part, "Apologies for the late night email. I want each of you to have as up-to-date information as I have. Very late this afternoon, Majority Leader Mark Lawson received a call from the ODM-HSAS legislative liaison stating they have insufficient funds available to make payroll for Wednesday, May 7th, and are $23 million short for the remainder of FY25. This is the first we have heard from the agency about being unable to make payroll. On March 31, in a meeting in my conference room, I specifically asked if there would be any cash flow issues before the end of May and was assured there would not be. This evening, I received confirmation via text message from Commissioner Friesen that the report Rep. Lawson received from her legislative liaison was accurate. She stated in the text that she was first made aware of this cash flow issue yesterday after 3 p.m. On Friday, Hilbert released a statement saying Commissioner Friesen said the date for running out of funds had shifted from May 7th to May 21st. His statement read in part, quote, "We are out of time and will not accept any more delays. Individuals at ODM-HSAS have known about this shortfall for months, yet it is the final month of legislative session and we still do not have answers. This is unacceptable." State Representative Melissa Provenzano is on the Select Committee looking into the agency's finances. We spoke with her on Friday afternoon about this news.
I serve on the Select Committee to investigate the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services and answer the question, where has the money gone and what are we doing right now? And for the last two and a half months, we've known that they were in financial straits. And so we've been asking, and for the entire month of February and most of March, it is, what is it that you need? And they told us that we're going to have a massive budget cut. And then they actually rolled out cancellation letters to our mental health care providers across the state. In the Tulsa area, the three major mental health care providers got those letters saying, well, we're not going to be able to continue to fund you. We're canceling your contract. Problem is, they backdated that to October, and those providers had already used funds that they had on hand, which they traditionally get reimbursed for, to provide services to Tulsa area citizens. And so it was sort of red alert. And we're like, wait a minute, we can't do that. And so we started digging in and asked to see their budget, asked to see their numbers, and just weren't getting the answers that we needed. And at first it was, well, maybe we think we're $63 million in the hole. Then it was 43, then it was 97, then it was 22, then it was 6. And so we're like, okay, well, justify. We weren't getting what we wanted. And so the speaker assembled the Select Committee. and to dig in and just, what is your budget? Where have you spent the dollars? What do you actually need? Because we can't go without these services. In the Tulsa area, those funds pay for COPES. That saves lives. That's our suicide hotline. And it is every single day that we have that. And so we got that resolved and said, let's just wait a minute, pump the brakes. We don't want to be canceling these services. And then we assembled this committee and started digging in. And for 2 straight weeks, we got no authentic, true answers as to what happened, where the money has flown, and then we arrive all the way up to this last week. We had Regina Bertram with Locke sit before us and outline she dug into their books and said, this is what I think we are, and then Thursday happens, and every moment of being in this committee and every moment up to then Thursday, when we got the notice that they also can't make payroll to the tune of $23 million, we're like, wait a minute, this is brand new information. You have not once brought this up. Why? What is going on? And so we're just sort of spinning at the moment.
The agency sent Fox 25 a statement Friday morning around 10:30, saying in part, quote, ODM-HSAS continues to navigate a difficult but necessary period of operational and fiscal reform, end quote. On Friday afternoon, just minutes before 5 o'clock, the agency sent a new statement saying that ODM-HSAS would be making payroll as scheduled, but did not list the specifics as to how. The statement said in part, quote, ODM-HSAS continues to partner with our legislative and executive partners to ensure no disruption to services or operations. This administration continues to demonstrate our philosophy of uncovering problems and partnering with appropriate stakeholders to fix them in a meaningful way, end quote. Speaker Hilbert says Commissioner Friesen will meet publicly with the House Select Committee on Mental Health Finances on Monday morning. And that's your session spotlight. Check out my Capitol reports every Monday through Thursday on Fox 25. I also provide a look ahead at what bills will be heard throughout the upcoming week on Sundays. For even more in-depth coverage, head over to OKCFox.com.